The first alarm screamed before anyone understood what it meant. On the alien patrol flagship Silent Promise, lights flashed red across the command deck. Consoles chimed in overlapping warnings. Navigation officers shouted numbers that made no sense. The border of human space was supposed to be empty. No stations, no fleets, no defenses, just dark. Yet the moment the patrol crossed the invisible line, everything began to fail. Engine output dropping, one officer yelled. Gravity fluctuation. No, wait. Gravity is gone. Another shouted as crew members lifted from their seats, slamming into restraints. The commander floated above the deck, claws gripping a rail. His eyes flicked across the main screen. Space looked normal. Stars burned calmly. No weapons fire. No ships. Nothing. That was the worst part. Identify the attack, he reminded his crew, forcing calm into his voice. Silence answered him. Then one of the escort ships vanished from the sensor display. Not exploded. Not damaged. Just gone. A second escort lost power, tumbling slowly as its life support systems shut down one by one. The crew inside began to scream over open comms. Help us. Air is failing. Controls are dead. The signal was cut out. The commander's frills tightened in fear. This is impossible, a senior navigator whispered. There is no enemy signature. They had trained for ambushes, for overwhelming firepower, for surprise fleets and hidden weapons. They had not trained for nothing. The border itself felt wrong, as if space had teeth. Pull us back, the commander ordered. Full retreat. The engines responded with a weak flicker, then nothing. The flagship drifted. Time stretched. Seconds felt heavy. Oxygen indicators dipped, slow but steady, like a patient bleeding out. A junior officer, barely out of training, stared at the star map. Commander, this region was marked low risk. Human space was rated non-hostile. The commander turned his gaze slowly. That rating, he said quietly, was based on absence. Another alarm sounded. Environmental controls dropped to emergency mode. Crew members began sealing suits. Hands shook. Breathing grew loud inside helmets. Then, without warning, every screen on the bridge went black. For one terrible moment, there was only darkness and the sound of panicked breathing. Then a single line of text appeared, not in their language, not translated, just crude symbols, repeating across every display. Turn back, turn back, turn back. The words pulsed, slow and steady, like a heartbeat. The commander stared at them, dread sinking deep. Humans, he whispered. No one had seen a human in generations. They were spoken of as a footnote species. A quiet one. A people who never expanded, never dominated, never joined the great galactic conflicts. Weak, cautious, forgettable. Yet here, at the edge of their space, entire patrol fleets were dying without a single shot fired. The junior officer swallowed. Commander, why would a weak species defend empty space this hard? Before the commander could answer, the deck shuddered. Gravity snapped back on violently. Several crew members slammed to the floor. Consoles sparked. Sensors flared alive again. And now, finally, they saw it. Not ships. Structures. Massive, cold shapes drifting just beyond detection range. Old. Silent. Countless. Not weapons platforms. Systems. Designed not to kill quickly, but to endure forever. The commander felt a truth settle into his bones. This border was not meant to be crossed. It was meant to stop things that believed they were stronger. The human message appeared again, clearer now. Turn back, last warning. The commander opened a channel to Fleet Command, voice tight with fear. This is Patrol 7, he said. Human space is not empty. Repeat, human space is not empty. Whatever humans are, we were wrong. The oxygen alarm dipped another notch. And far beyond the border, something unseen adjusted its calculations and waited. The silence after the patrol's distress call lasted exactly 17 seconds. Then the galactic relay erupted. On the command world of the Coalition, admirals, analysts, and political overseers flooded the central chamber. Holograms bloomed into the air, star maps, casualty reports, broken telemetry from Patrol 7. A red border glowed on the map. Human space. The word carried little weight in the room. It never had. Status? Demanded High Admiral Corthan, his voice sharp. An intelligence officer stepped forward, mandibles tight. We lost contact with Patrol 7 shortly after border entry. Partial data suggests systemic failure across multiple ships. No confirmed hostile contact. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. No hostile contact. Corthan repeated. Then why are they dead? The officer hesitated. They aren't confirmed dead, sir. Some vessels are drifting. Powerless. Another analyst added quickly. Sensors detected no weapons fire. No fleets. No energy spikes consistent with attack. That made it worse. Human space was categorized as non-expansionist. Low population density. Fragmented political structure. No recent wars worth recording. No major alliances. No galactic footprint. A background species. Pull historical files, Corthan ordered. Everything we have on humans. A pause. Then another. The archivist's frills flushed in embarrassment. There isn't much, Admiral. What do you mean, there isn't much? Humans entered the galactic record centuries ago. Early explorers noted them as technologically capable but strategically passive. They declined invitations to join coalitions, refused trade integration, established fixed borders and stopped. A strategist scoffed. So they stagnated. That was the assumption, the archivist said. No expansion, no major conflicts, no requests for aid. Corthan leaned forward. And no one thought that was strange? The room fell quiet. Another officer activated an older map. Trade routes curved around human space like water around stone. They were inconvenient, she admitted. Their territory blocked optimal lanes. But they never interfered, never attacked, never responded to probes. Eventually, captains learned to go around. Someone muttered, like a dead system. Corthan's eyes narrowed. Dead systems don't issue warnings. The text from Patrol 7's final transmission appeared in the air. Turn back. Simple. Crude. Not translated. Not encoded. Almost human. Run a risk projection, Corthan said. If this is some unknown defense system, what are we facing? The tactical AI pulsed. Processing. Data insufficient, it replied. However, extrapolation from patrol telemetry indicates sustained environmental interference rather than direct combat. The probability of attrition-based defense exceeds 70%. Attrition, an admiral echoed. You mean they let us die slowly? The AI did not answer emotionally. Yes. A junior strategist shifted uncomfortably. That's inefficient. Not if time is your weapon, another replied. Corthan turned sharply. Explain. The strategist swallowed. Most species, including ours, design wars to end quickly. Decisive battles. Resource capture. Morale collapse. Humans may not. Several eyes turned toward him. He continued, choosing his words carefully. Their history, what little we have, shows prolonged internal conflicts. Wars lasting decades. Even centuries. High tolerance for loss. High tolerance for discomfort. That data is ancient, someone objected. Pre-galactic. Yes, the strategist said. Which means it shaped them. Corthan stared at the map again. The human border glowed, unchanged. Send a message, he ordered. To whom? An officer asked. To them. The chamber stilled. We don't even know who governs them, the officer said. Then send it to all frequencies, Corthan snapped. Formal. Polite. Assertive. Moments later, the transmission went out. This is High Admiral Corthan of the Coalition. Human territory has interfered with lawful patrol operations. Respond immediately. They waited. Seconds passed. Then minutes. No reply. Elsewhere, far from the command chamber, a drifting patrol ship flickered back to partial power. Inside, the surviving crew huddled in failing life support. Breath fog visors. Limbs felt heavy. The human message still pulsed on the walls. Turn back. A technician whispered. It's not a threat. The commander, weakened but conscious, looked at him. What is it then? A warning, the technician said. Like you'd give to a child near fire. The commander closed his eyes. Back on the command world, an analyst spoke up hesitantly. Admiral, we've uncovered something. Corthan turned. Out with it. Human expansion records, she said. They exist. But they stop abruptly. She enlarged a timeline. Human colonies spread outward, then froze. They halted growth centuries ago. But their industrial output didn't drop. It increased. Increased. Corthan repeated. Yes. Infrastructure density within their borders spiked. Logistics networks. Redundancies. Storage facilities. Systems built to last far beyond normal use cycles. Why? Asked an admiral. The analyst hesitated. The only logical conclusion is preparation. For what? Someone demanded. She swallowed. For losing. The chamber erupted. That's absurd. No species plans to lose. They weren't planning to lose, the strategist said quietly. They were planning to survive it. Silence returned, thick and uneasy. Another alert chimed. Admiral, an officer said. Incoming transmission. A single channel opened. A human appeared. Older than expected. Unarmed. No symbols of rank visible. Eyes tired, not afraid. He looked directly into the chamber. This is a courtesy response, he said calmly. You crossed a closed border. Corthan straightened. Your systems crippled our patrol. That is an act of hostility. The human shook his head slightly. No, that was containment. You are detaining coalition forces. No, the human replied. We are waiting for them to leave. By killing them? The human's expression tightened, not with anger, but something heavier. We warn them. We always warn. Corthan leaned forward. Why? The human was silent for a moment. Then he said, because we learned a long time ago that winning fast teaches the wrong lesson. The chamber listened, unsettled. You assume humans are weak because we don't expand. The human continued. You assume silence means safety. He looked tired now. Old. We built our borders so we wouldn't have to prove you wrong. Corthan felt a chill. Is this a threat? The human met his gaze. No, Admiral. It's a reminder. The transmission ended. No demands. No ultimatums. Just silence. The AI spoke softly. Admiral, Patrol's 7 life signs are continuing to decline. At current rates, total loss in. Corthan raised a hand. His eyes remained fixed on the dark border on the map. Human space. Still empty. Still silent. And now, unmistakably, waiting. The coalition did not retreat. They never did. High Admiral Corthan stood before the command chamber, claws clasped behind his back, staring at the dark red shape of human space. Around him, advisors argued in sharp bursts, fear dressed as logic, pride disguised as strategy. They're bluffing, one admiral insisted. No visible fleets. No strikes. Only environmental interference. Interference that killed an entire patrol. Another snapped back. Slowly, the first replied. Inefficiently. If humans wanted war, they would have acted by now. That word, slowly, hung in the air. Corthan turned. Humans warned us. Twice. Warnings were not weapons. Warnings were invitations to back down. The coalition did not back down. Authorize Operation Deep Lantern. Corthan ordered at last. Limited incursion. Scientific escort. We identify the systems causing these failures and dismantle them. No cheers followed the order. Only stiff acknowledgments. Within hours, a new fleet assembled, larger than Patrol 7, stronger, layered with redundancies. Engineers reinforced life support. Scientists calibrated sensors to search for hidden emitters, mines, anything that could explain the border's effects. They crossed together. And nothing happened. No alarms. No warnings. No messages. For a brief moment, confidence returned. See, a captain said. Empty. Then time passed. Minutes. Hours. Fuel consumption rose, barely noticeable at first. Navigation adjustments required constant correction. Micro-errors stacked. Systems worked harder to maintain normal conditions. The fleet did not slow. The humans did not appear. On the second day, a supply frigate reported coolant loss. Engineers fixed it. On the third, a medical ship lost internal pressure in one compartment. Contained. Logged. Annoying. Inconvenient. Not war. By the 5th day, fatigue began to show. Sleep cycles drifted. Artificial gravity fluctuated by fractions that strained joints and muscles. Crew members complained of headaches, nausea, irritation. The scientific teams found nothing. No weapons, the lead researcher reported. No energy signatures above background. It's as if space itself is hostile. That made no sense. Space was space. On the 7th day, a cruiser shut down. Not catastrophically. Cleanly. Power faded. Lights dimmed. Life support dropped to emergency. The rest of the fleet watched it drift, helpless. Tow it back. Corthan ordered from the command world. The attempt failed. Tractor beams sputtered. Thrusters misfired. The effort drained more resources than it saved. The stranded crew sent a message, calm, controlled. We can hold for a while, the captain said. But not forever. Forever. Another human word, translated imperfectly. On the 9th day, the message came again. Turn back. Not louder. Not angrier. Just there. Corthan slammed a claw against the console. They are toying with us. A strategist shook her head slowly. No, Admiral. They are not reacting to us at all. What do you mean? She pulled up human infrastructure data. What little had been extracted. Dense webs of logistics nodes. Storage. Recycling systems. Energy loops designed to function with minimal input. These systems don't respond, she said. They exist. They don't care if we're here. They don't accelerate. They don't escalate. Another officer whispered. They don't even notice us. The realization crept through the chamber like cold. This was not a trap that sprang shut. It was a place designed so that nothing else could last inside it. On the 12th day, a human ship appeared. Not a warship. Small. Old. Scarred. It drifted into sensor range without activating weapons or shields. The Coalition fleet locked on instantly, targeting systems screaming for authorization. Corthan raised a hand. Hold fire. The human ship opened a channel. The same man appeared as before. Older now, somehow, though only days had passed. You should leave, he said simply. An alien captain snarled. You are interfering with Coalition operations. Withdraw your systems or face consequences. The human looked genuinely confused. Withdraw what? He asked. Our ships are failing. Yes, the human replied. That will continue. You designed this, Corthan accused. The human nodded once. We did. Then disengage it. The human's eyes hardened, not with anger, but resolve. We can't. A ripple of tension passed through the fleet. Why not? Corthan demanded. Because it isn't a switch, the human said. It's how we live. He leaned closer to the camera. You think this is a defense grid. It isn't. It's an ecosystem. Silence followed. The human continued, voice steady. Human space runs on margins. Redundancy. Reserves. Every system assumes something will fail. Then something else. Then something else. He paused. Your ships are built for efficiency. Speed. Optimization. The human shook his head. Those things break first. A scientist interrupted. You're saying our presence alone is causing this? Yes. Then why does it not affect you? The human did not answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quieter. Because we designed it to hurt us less. Corthan felt something twist inside him. You built a region of space that punishes existence. We built a region of space that punishes invasion. The human corrected. There's a difference. Another cruiser lost power. Then another. Crew reports flooded in, rationing, exhaustion, systems cannibalized to keep others alive. The human envoy watched it all without satisfaction. We don't want you dead, he said. Dead enemies learn nothing. Then what do you want? Corthan asked. The human looked almost sad. For you to understand why no one crosses our border. He cut the transmission. No dramatic exit. No threats. Just absence. On the 15th day, the Coalition command made the unthinkable decision. Withdraw. But retreat was harder than entry. Systems that barely held on the way and now failed faster under strain. Ships abandoned ships. Crews were redistributed, overcrowded, gasping. The human message appeared one last time. Turn back. Some ships did. Some didn't make it. Weeks later, the surviving vessels limped home. They brought no captured technology. No tactical victories. Only stories. Stories of a species that did not fight wars the way others did. Stories of space that drained you simply for being there. Stories of humans who did not chase, did not threaten, did not even hate. They just waited. In the aftermath, Corthan addressed the Coalition Council. We underestimated them, he said. Not because they are strong, but because they are prepared to endure what we cannot. A delegate scoffed. Endurance doesn't win wars. Corthan met his gaze. No, he said quietly. But it decides who's still standing when the war ends. Far away, beyond the dark border, human systems recalibrated. Reserves were checked. Losses logged. No celebrations. No announcements. Just maintenance. Because to humans, this had not been a battle. It had been a reminder. And somewhere deep in human space, calculations updated, not about victory, but about how long the galaxy might take to try again. The Coalition called it a correction. Not a war. Not an invasion. A correction of misunderstanding. High Admiral Corthan did not argue the name. Names did not change outcomes, and he felt the weight of this one already. The council chambers were packed, voices sharp with wounded pride. We withdrew too soon, one delegate insisted. Human systems are passive. Predictable. We can adapt. They didn't defeat us, another added. They inconvenienced us. Horthen said nothing. He had watched ships die quietly. He had heard crews beg for time. But the vote passed. Authorization granted. This time, the coalition did not send patrols. They sent everything. Armadas assembled across multiple sectors. Supply fleets, mobile factories, hospital carriers, command nexuses. Entire planetary economies shifted to support the operation. If humans used time as a weapon, the coalition would drown them in momentum. The invasion began on 1,000 fronts. Human space did not react. No alarms. No messages. Coalition forces advanced system by system, claiming territory that no one defended. They planted flags on empty stations, seized silent outposts, declared victory broadcasts to the galaxy. This is proof, officials proclaimed. Human fear is myth. For the first month, it almost felt true. Then the reports began. A refinery station malfunctioned. Minor, reparable. A convoy arrived late due to misaligned navigation markers. Food stores spoiled faster than expected. Crew rotations slipped out of sync. Annoyances. Commanders adjusted. Added buffers. Increased oversight. Humans did nothing. In the second month, a supply hub failed completely. Its automated systems shut down after detecting cascading inefficiencies. Redundant backups engaged, then disengaged, one by one. The station did not explode. It simply went dark. Coalition engineers swarmed it, confused. The hardware was intact. Power was available. But the system refused to restart without conditions no longer present. Conditions that assumed human logistics. By the third month, the word attrition returned to briefings. Fuel consumption exceeded projections. Replacement parts wore down faster in unfamiliar conditions. Medical bays filled with exhaustion cases, stress injuries, immune failures. The humans still did nothing. Then a coalition commander made a mistake. Believing the silence meant weakness, he ordered a deep push toward what sensors marked as a high-density human system cluster. This will force a response, he said confidently. We strike their core. The fleet jumped. They arrived to find no defenders. Just infrastructure. Vast. Layered. Old. Human stations connected by webs of slow-moving cargo platforms, storage rings, recycling hubs. Everything moved deliberately, without urgency. Coalition ships docked, seized control, rerouted systems. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then gravity shifted by a fraction. Barely noticeable. Except it never stabilized. Crew members developed vertigo. Joints ached. Machinery vibrated under constant microstress. Maintenance crews worked non-stop, chasing errors that never fully resolved. Human architecture was not optimized. It was tolerant. Designed to function while broken. Coalition ships were not. A week later, a human message arrived, broadcast openly, without encryption. This system is under maintenance, it said. Please vacate. The commander laughed. We own it now, he replied. There was no response. Instead, the system's internal routing changed. Cargo platforms altered paths. Recycling cycles slowed. Energy distribution shifted to low-priority modes. Coalition forces found themselves competing with the system itself for resources. Then the lights dimmed. Not off. Just dimmer. Human systems were entering conservation mode. Coalition ships could not. Within days, the Deep Push fleet was forced to abandon the system, not by attack, but by starvation of function. The galaxy watched in confusion. How are they winning without fighting? Asked commentators. The answer came slowly. Human fleets began to appear, not in mass, not for battle. They struck only supply lines. Small, precise raids. Targeted sabotage. Then disappearance. No pursuit. No chases. Coalition commanders realized the truth too late. Humans were not defending territory. They were defending time. Every hour the coalition spent fixing, adjusting, compensating, humans spent preparing, reinforcing, waiting. A captured human pilot was brought before an alien interrogator. You're losing systems, the interrogator said. Why not counterattack? The human shrugged weakly. Why would we? You're being invaded. Yes. Then fight. The human met his gaze. We are. By the 6th month, entire coalition fleets were locked in place. Not surrounded, not besieged. Just stuck. Unable to advance without breaking. unable to retreat without losing more. Medical officers reported rising suicides. Crew morale collapsed. Command structures frayed under constant pressure to do something. Humans still did nothing. Then the first coalition world went dark. Not destroyed. Disconnected. Trade routes collapsed as supply commitments failed. Food shortages rippled outward. Civil unrest ignited on planets far from human space. All because the invasion could not end. Corthan stood alone in the command chamber, staring at the map. Human territory glowed, not with conquest, but with static persistence. An aide approached quietly. "Admiral, public sentiment is turning. They don't understand why this is happening." Corthan nodded. "Neither did we. Humans are not breaking," the aide continued. "They're absorbing." That word settled heavily. Absorbing. The coalition had assumed war meant force meeting force. Humans had redefined it. War, to them, was endurance under pressure. Victory was simply being there after others left. Another human message arrived, not addressed to commanders, but broadcast to all coalition forces. "You can keep pushing," the voice said calmly. "We won't stop you." The pause that followed was deliberate. "But you won't reach anything worth taking." A junior officer whispered. "They're not afraid of losing territory." "No," Corthan said softly. "They never were." Reports streamed in, abandoned ships, cannibalized fleets, systems stripped just to survive another week. The invasion had no climax, no decisive battle, only a slow realization spreading through the ranks. There was no finish line. Human space did not end in conquest or defeat. It ended when you gave up. And the coalition, for the first time in its history, began to understand the cost of refusing to quit. The first intercepted human transmission was dismissed as noise. Coalition analysts flagged it as low priority, civilian traffic, internal routing chatter, nothing tactical. It carried no codes, no commands, no coordinates, just voices. Then someone listened. A junior signals officer, exhausted and curious, played the audio instead of deleting it. The room filled with a human voice reading names. Slowly, carefully, each name followed by a pause. Present. Confirmed. Missing. No celebration. No anger. Just accounting. The officer's frills tightened. He forwarded the file. Within hours, coalition intelligence realized what they had been hearing. Human casualty reports. Not encrypted. Not hidden. Openly broadcast within human space. The coalition had assumed humans hid losses to maintain morale, as most species did. They assumed fear would fracture them if enough pain was applied. Instead, humans counted the pain out loud. In one transmission, a human commander addressed a room of unseen listeners. "We lost Station Hale," she said. Her voice was steady, but thin. Evacuation completed at 92%. The remaining 8% stayed to finish the reroute. A breath. They knew the timers. No further explanation was needed. Another transmission followed, days later. A civilian voice this time. Older. Tired. "My son volunteered for a logistics delay. He said it would take 12 hours for the hospital convoy." A pause, heavy. "I bought 14. The coalition officer stopped the playback. The room was silent. "What is this?" an analyst whispered. Corthan stood at the back of the chamber, listening. He had ordered the interceptions reviewed personally, not for strategy, but because he needed to understand. "They're telling themselves the truth," he said. "Why?" another asked. "It weakens them." "No," Corthan replied. "It anchors them." More transmissions poured in. Human engineers arguing over power allocations, knowing one choice would doom a station and another would save a fleet. Medics discussing which evacuation corridors to keep open when there weren't enough ships. Factory supervisors explaining why production quotas would not be met and apologizing to no one. Humans did not hide sacrifice. They normalized it. Coalition psychologists struggled to explain it. "In our species," one said, "open acknowledgement of loss leads to despair." "Then perhaps," another replied quietly, "they are not trying to avoid despair." On the invasion front, coalition troops encountered something new. Human resistance. Not fleets. Not battles. People. A coalition unit boarded a human manufacturing platform believed to be abandoned. Sensors showed minimal power. No life signs beyond background noise. Inside, they found humans still working. Thin. Exhausted. Wrapped in patched suits. One raised his hands calmly. "We'll finish in 20 minutes, he said. "Then you can have it." The coalition officer hesitated. Have what? The station, the human replied. It's yours. Just give us 20. Why? The officer demanded. The human glanced toward a distant window. Because if we stop now, the relay fails. And if that fails, 6 other places go dark. The officer stared. You're losing this station anyway. The human nodded. Yes. Then why work? The human smiled faintly. Because someone else is counting on us. Coalition command ordered the station seized immediately. The humans did not resist. They finished their work anyway. The relay was held. 6 other places did not go dark. That story spread. Then another. And another. Coalition troops began encountering human crews who refused to flee, not to fight, but to complete tasks. Repairs, transfers, uploads, always timed, always measured in minutes and lives. A captured human medic was brought before an interrogator. You cannot win, the interrogator said. Why do you continue? The medic looked confused. Win what? The war. She considered the word. We're not trying to win the war, she said slowly. We're trying to get everyone through it. Even if that means dying. She met his gaze. Especially then. Coalition morale began to crack. Soldiers trained to expect surrender found none. Trained to expect panic found order. Trained to expect desperation found planning. Human messages leaked into coalition channels. Never as propaganda, never as threats. Just information. This corridor will collapse in 6 hours. This station will self-destruct after evacuation. This route is still open. Use it. At first, coalition commanders assumed deception. Then the predictions came true. Every time, a coalition captain rerouted a civilian convoy based on a human warning. It survived. He did it again. And again. Soon, whispers spread through the ranks. Listen to the humans, some said. They tell the truth. Command hated that. Trusting the enemy was unthinkable. But ignoring them was worse. Corthan watched reports pile up. Coalition ships saved by human timing data. Troops survived because a human evacuation corridor was left open longer than expected. They are managing the battlefield, an aide said. Even where we occupy. No, Corthan replied. They are managing the cost. The difference was terrifying. Another intercepted transmission played in the chamber. A human officer stood before a group of civilians. We can hold the line here for 2 more days, he said. That gives the outer settlements time to clear. A woman asked, what happened to you? The officer didn't answer immediately. Then, we stay. No cheering followed. No crying. Just nod. Corthan felt something tighten in his chest. The coalition had assumed humans were reckless with life. They were wrong. Humans were careful with life. That was the problem. They chose who would bear the cost, and they chose it deliberately. In a distant coalition world, protests erupted. Families demanded to know why the war continued. Why resources vanished. Why were sons and daughters dying without victories? The answer, slow, quiet, undeniable, was that the invasion could not end until humans allowed it to. And humans were still counting. A final transmission intercepted that week was not a report. It was a message, not to the coalition, to humans. We are tired, a voice said. It's okay to be tired. A pause. But we don't stop tired. We stop when it's done. Corthan turned away from the console. For the first time, he understood the true shape of the war. Humans were not stronger. They were not faster. They were not more numerous. They were simply willing to pay a price no other species would accept, and to do so openly, together, without lies. And that made them unstoppable. The coalition finally stopped asking how the humans were winning. They began asking when it had already been lost. The invasion map no longer showed clean arrows or advancing lines. It showed knots, entire fleets tangled in place, supply routes looping uselessly, command structures layered over one another like scars. Human space had not pushed back. It was absorbed. High Admiral Corthan stood before the council again. But this time there were no arguments, no raised voices. Only exhaustion. We have misidentified the battlefield, he said. A delegate scoffed weakly. Space is space. No, Corthan replied. Human space is a system, and we are inside it. He gestured, and a new map appeared, not tactical, but logistical. It showed flow, fuel, food, spare parts, crew rotations, medical throughput. Every line bent. Every calculation drifted. Human territory is not defended by weapons, Corthan continued. It is defended by assumptions. Assumptions we made. The council listened now. They assumed invasion, he said. So they designed everything to function under invasion conditions. Shortages, damage, isolation. A strategist leaned forward. You're saying this isn't wartime infrastructure? Yes, Corthan said softly. This is normal for them. The realization landed like a physical blow. Human stations were not optimized for peace. Human fleets were not designed for dominance. Human logistics did not assume stability. They assumed failure. Coalition systems, perfected over centuries of efficiency, were brittle by comparison. A junior analyst raised a trembling claw. Admiral, we found something. Speak. The human border, she said. It isn't just the edge of their territory. She overlaid a new data layer. Energy drift, resource flow, traffic density. It's the point where their systems stop caring about you. The room went quiet. Human space did not react to foreign presence. It did not escalate, threaten, or respond dynamically. It simply continued operating as if invaders were temporary noise. And the noise faded. That was the trap. Coalition forces had assumed borders existed to be defended. Humans had built a border that did not notice you unless you belonged there. Everything beyond it assumed shared standards, durable equipment, redundant supply chains, crews trained to function under deprivation. Coalition ships were not built for that world. They began to fail in ways no doctrine addressed. Medical crises spiked as immune systems collapsed under unfamiliar microbial ecosystems. Human recycling loops tolerated contamination levels coalition biology could not. Crew rotation schedules broke down because there was nowhere to rotate to. Human space had no safe rear, only depth. A coalition captain recorded a log before abandoning his ship. We are not surrounded, he said hoarsely. There is no enemy line. There is just nowhere to rest. Elsewhere, a human fleet moved. Not to attack. To close doors. Navigation corridors that had once been left open quietly powered down. Automated beacons deactivated. Not jammed, removed. Coalition ships found routes missing. Not blocked. Gone. Human logistics nodes rerouted themselves deeper inward, away from conflict zones. Storage depots emptied on schedule, then shut down. The invasion forces chased ghosts. Corthan received a private report marked galactic impact. Trade lanes beyond human space were failing. At first, the connection had seemed indirect. Fleets tied up. Resources delayed. Now it was clear. The coalition had committed too much. Entire economies had bent to support the invasion. When the flow stalled, nothing replaced it. Food shortages hit fringe worlds. Energy rationing spread. Local conflicts flared as resources grew scarce. All because human space refused to break. A counselor whispered, "They're collapsing us without leaving their territory." "Yes," Corthan replied. "Because we brought the collapse with us." The most terrifying revelation came next. Human command finally spoke again, not to the coalition, but to the galaxy. A simple broadcast, translated into every major language. "We are not at war with you," the message said. "We never were." Observers across the galaxy listened. "You entered our space," the voice continued. "We did not stop you. We only continued living the way we always have." Images accompanied the words. Human cities under dimmed lights, still functioning. Factories running at reduced output. Workers rotating shifts to conserve energy. Children studying in underground classrooms while orbital traffic rerouted overhead. "This is not mobilization," the voice said. "This is the baseline." The galaxy reeled. If this was baseline, a coalition general slammed a fist onto a table somewhere far away. Then why close the borders at all? The answer came later, through Corthan. Because humans knew what happened when others came inside. They had tried cooperation once. Long ago, records surfaced of early contact, small coalitions, trade attempts, shared infrastructure projects. Everyone had ended the same way. Other species optimized human systems, streamlined them, removed redundancies, increased efficiency. And when the crisis came, everything collapsed. Humans rebuilt afterward. Slower, heavier, more wasteful, more survivable. They closed their borders not out of fear of others, but to protect others from the way humans lived. And now the galaxy was paying the price of forcing that door open. Coalition commanders began issuing unauthorized orders. Retreats, abandonments, desertions. Some ships followed human guidance channels quietly. using evacuation windows meant for human civilians. Others attempted to push deeper, believing conquest lay just beyond the next system. None succeeded. The invasion fractured. Corthan watched the map change, not with explosions, but with absences. Fleets winked out as they withdrew or failed. Command nodes disconnected as power grids collapsed under strain. Human space remained unchanged. Then came the final report that broke the Council. A joint economic analysis confirmed it. If the invasion continued for another standard cycle, galactic trade would collapse entirely. Not because humans attacked it, because the coalition had removed too much capacity trying to break something that could not be rushed. A delegate stood, shaking. They've turned our strength into a weakness. Corthan nodded. They turned time into a weapon. Silence fell. The Council faced a truth no empire wanted to admit. They could not win. They could only decide how much of the galaxy would bleed before they stopped. A message arrived on Corthan's console, private, unencrypted. From the human envoy. You're beginning to see it, the message read. This is why no one crosses. Corthan typed a response with unsteady claws. What happens if we leave? The reply came quickly. You'll survive, the envoy wrote. Most of you. And if we don't? There was a long pause. Then human space will outlast you. Corthan leaned back, staring at the dimmed lights of the command chamber. The trap had never been a weapon. The trap was endurance. And the galaxy had walked into it willingly, believing speed and strength would be enough. Outside the chamber, alarms sounded again, not from human space this time, but from core coalition worlds as systems failed under the weight of a war that refused to end. The border glowed on the map. Still dark, still patient, and now, unmistakably, victorious without claiming a single world. The galaxy noticed the war the moment it stopped making sense. At first, the effects had been distant. Numbers on trade ledgers, delayed shipments, minor shortages blamed on logistics errors. But as the cycles passed, the disruptions spread outward like fractures in crystals. Entire trade routes went silent. Not attacked, not blockaded, just unused. Freighters waited in ports with nowhere to go. Markets fluctuated wildly, then froze. Energy grids on neutral worlds dimmed as fuel failed to arrive on schedule. And always, at the center of the widening disruption, there was the same dark shape on every star map. Human space. News networks across the galaxy ran the same question in different languages. How can a war with no major battles cause this much damage? The coalition tried to control the narrative. This is a temporary strain, officials claimed. Human resistance is passive and unsustainable. Resolution is imminent. But the data betrayed them. Invasion fleets were no longer advancing. They were shrinking, not from destruction, but from erosion. Ships returned home stripped of non-essential systems, crews hollow-eyed and underfed. Some did not return at all, their captains choosing to abandon vessels rather than drag them back through space that refused to cooperate. The first independent investigation came from a neutral trading compact. Their analysts compared human territory to every other known power. The conclusion spread like wildfire. Human space was not a military power. It was a sink. Anything entering it lost momentum, efficiency, certainty, and nothing gained it back. The revelation terrified smaller nations. Emergency summits were called. Delegates argued in overlapping fear. If humans decide to expand, they won't. Another interrupted. They never have. That's what makes this worse. High Admiral Corthan was summoned before a joint galactic council, something that had not happened in generations. He stood alone in a chamber built for unity and found none. You led this invasion, a representative accused. Explain how a non-hostile species is dismantling galactic stability. Corthan did not defend himself. We assumed the wrong metric, he said. We measured power in fleets and firepower. Humans measure it in survivability. That is not dominance, someone snapped. No, Corthan agreed. It is permanent. The council demanded proof. Corthan provided it. He showed them projections. If the invasion ended now, recovery would take decades. If it continued, collapse was inevitable. Not just for the coalition, for everyone tied to its economy. The council chamber fell into stunned silence. A representative from a minor world spoke hesitantly. Why didn't they warn us? Corthan answered quietly. They did. Records were pulled. Old advisories surfaced. Human refusals to join trade blocs, polite but firm border declarations, ancient warnings about incompatible logistics. Ignored, because they were not backed by force. Now force was irrelevant. Human communications reached new audiences, not propaganda. Context. They released historical archives, raw, unfiltered, records of early interstellar cooperation that had failed, of shared systems collapsing because they were optimized beyond tolerance, of humans rebuilding afterward, slower each time, heavier each time, until nothing short of sustained catastrophe could break them. They showed the galaxy something uncomfortable. Human civilization had been forged by repeated failure, not extinction-level failure, but constant, grinding loss. They adapted not to avoid pain, but to function inside it. A neutral observer summarized it bluntly. Most species evolved to prevent collapse. Humans evolved to continue during it. That insight changed everything. Smaller powers began issuing orders of their own. Avoid human space at all costs. Do not provoke. Do not assist the invasion. Some quietly opened channels to human logistics coordinators, not to fight, but to cope. Human advisors, reluctantly and sparingly, shared survival models, rationing schedules, redundancy planning, failure cascades. The irony was not lost on anyone. The species accused of being weak was now teaching the galaxy how to survive the consequences of trying to break them. Within the coalition, authority fractured. Regional commanders withdrew without approval. Entire fleets powered down and waited, conserving resources rather than obeying orders to push forward. Some coalition worlds declared neutrality retroactively. Others demanded reparations from their own leaders. Civil unrest spread. And through it all, human space remained unchanged. No grand mobilization. No triumph broadcasts. Human systems stayed in conservation mode, ticking steadily onward. Corthan received one last comprehensive report. Coalition losses had crossed a threshold, not in ships, but in trust. The belief that the coalition could protect its members was gone. That belief had been the true foundation of its power. Now it was eroding faster than any fleet. The final blow came not from a battlefield, but from a market. The Central Exchange World, the heart of galactic trade, announced emergency closure. Too many uncertainties. Too much instability. The announcement sent shockwaves through every economy. And for the first time, the Council understood. This war was no longer about humans. It was about whether the galaxy could afford to continue pretending humans were irrelevant. Emotion was introduced. Total withdrawal. Recognition of human borders. Permanent non-interference. The vote was close. Pride does not die easily, but survival speaks louder. When the motion passed, there was no celebration. Only relief. High Admiral Corthan was tasked with delivering the message. He requested a direct channel. The human envoy appeared. Same face, same tired eyes. "We will withdraw," Corthan said. "All forces. All claims." The human nodded. "That is wise." "What happens next?" Corthan asked. The human considered. "You rebuild." "And you?" Corthan pressed. "We continue," the human replied. "As we always have." Corthan hesitated, then asked the question that had haunted him since the beginning. "If you knew this would happen, why not stop us sooner?" The human's gaze softened. "Because stopping you would have taught the wrong lesson." The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, fleets turned back. Borders retracted. Supply lines unraveled, then slowly reknit themselves. The war ended without a victory parade, but its consequences did not. Every star nation updated its charts. Human space was reclassified, not as hostile, not as neutral, but as untouchable. Historians would later argue that this was the moment the galaxy truly matured, or the moment it learned fear. Corthan watched the last invasion marker fade from the map. Human space remained, unchanged, unclaimed, and far more powerful than anyone had ever believed. Because it had proven something no empire ever wanted to admit. You don't have to conquer the galaxy to reshape it. Sometimes, you only have to refuse to break. The report was not meant for public release. It was classified at the highest level, sealed within the coalition's surviving archives, marked for future civilizations. A warning meant to outlast politics, pride, and memory. High Archivist Terrell read it alone. The war was over. Human space was quiet again. But the galaxy was not the same. Terrell's species had recorded wars for 10,000 cycles. He had cataloged extinctions, crusades, and collapses. He had seen empires burn themselves out in explosions of arrogance. This war had done something worse. It had ended without spectacle. The report opened with a simple statement. Humanity did not defeat us. We defeated ourselves by entering their space. Terrell paused, frills tightening. He continued. The withdrawal had been orderly in name only. Coalition fleets limped home, hollowed. Ships carried more people than they were designed to hold. Crews slept in shifts measured in minutes. Some vessels never made it back, not destroyed, simply abandoned when systems failed beyond recovery. Human space did not pursue. It never had. That absence haunted the survivors more than any chase. Terrell reviewed testimony after testimony. A logistics officer. They let us leave. They even kept corridors open longer than necessary. A fleet medic. Human warnings saved lives. They told us when systems would fail. Ours, not theirs. A soldier, voice shaking. They weren't fighting us. They were surviving around us. The archivist felt a chill. The next section detailed the galactic consequences. Markets took decades to recover. Trust in centralized power never fully returned. Dozens of species restructured their civilizations, building redundancy where efficiency once ruled. All because of one realization. If humans had wanted conquest, the galaxy could not have stopped them. They did not need fleets at borders. They did not need weapons aimed outward. They only needed others to come inside. Terrell turned to the section labeled Final Analysis. This was where the truth lived. Humanity had been underestimated because it did not behave like an empire. They did not expand endlessly. They did not demand tribute. They did not seek glory. To the galaxy, that looked like weakness. In reality, it was discipline. Human civilizations were built around a single, terrifying assumption. Something will go wrong. Everything might fail. Plan anyway. Their cities were not beautiful by galactic standards. Their ships were not elegant. Their systems wasted space, energy, and material. But they kept working. When supply failed. When leadership collapsed. When communication went dark. Human systems did not panic. They degraded. Gracefully. That word appeared again and again in the data. Graceful failure. Most species collapsed when pushed past limits. Humans designed limits into themselves and trained to operate there. The archivist stopped reading for a moment. He remembered the first time human space had appeared on galactic charts. A dark patch. No trade routes. No signals. Ignored. Not because it was dangerous, but because it seemed empty. That, the report stated plainly, was the fatal assumption. Human space was empty because it had already prepared for disaster. There was nothing to take. Nothing to exploit. Nothing that made conquest profitable. The archivist continued. In the final days of the invasion, one last human transmission had been recorded. It was not sent to the coalition. It was internal, leaked accidentally as forces withdrew. A human commander stood before a tired crowd. "We're standing down," he said. "They're leaving." There was no cheering. Someone asked, "Did we win?" The commander shook his head. "No. We endured." Another voice asked, "Will they come back?" The commander considered this. "Maybe," he said. "But they'll remember." The recording ended there. Terrell exhaled slowly. That was the lesson. Humans did not seek to be feared. They built systems so they would not have to be brave every time the universe tested them. Courage, for humans, was not charging into battle. It was showing up tomorrow after everything went wrong today. The report's final pages detailed a new galactic protocol. Human space classification, black zone. Not hostile. Not forbidden. Just not worth entering. Advisories were clear. Do not probe. Do not provoke. Do not attempt limited incursions. Do not assume silence means safety. One line was underlined repeatedly in archival notes. Humans do not escalate. They persist. Terrell closed the report and stared at the star map projected above his desk. Human space remained dark, unchanged. No monuments marked their victory. No borders expanded. They simply returned to baseline operations. That terrified the galaxy more than conquest ever could. Because it meant the war had cost them less than it had cost everyone else. Because it meant they could do it again, and never call it war. The archivist activated the final addendum, written decades after the conflict. It was a warning meant for those who would come long after memory faded. If you are reading this, you are considering crossing into human space. You believe you are stronger, faster, smarter, or more advanced. So did we. Humans will not rush to stop you. They will not threaten you. They will not chase you. They will let you in. And they will continue functioning long after you cannot. The addendum ended with a single sentence, attributed to a human source, never officially confirmed. We don't build walls to keep others out. We build worlds that only we can survive. Terrell powered down the archive. Beyond the station's viewport, stars burned quietly. Somewhere among them lay human space. Still empty. Still dark. And now, finally understood. Because the most terrifying thing about humanity was not their strength. It was that they never needed to prove it.